On Monday the 19th of September 2022, the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II occurred. In the early morning, around 4 hours before the lying in state closed, I managed to pay my respects after queuing for around 8 hours in London. I then had a place on the Mall to witness a funeral procession, and it was one of the most incredible and moving sights I'll ever see. It's been estimated that over 5 billion people watched the funeral around the world. However, to be there in London and to see the coffin with my own eyes was a powerful moment that will stay with me forever. But there has been a question that has been circulating since the Queen was laid to rest, and it was why was the Queen's coffin lead lined, when this was a rather old tradition. Join us today as we look at this, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. The Queen's coffin was moved several times before it travelled to London, and the journey was very moving. The monarch's body moved from Balmoral to Edinburgh for a solemn procession before it rested at St Giles Cathedral, before it was then flown down to London to Buckingham Palace. It was then transferred to Westminster Hall, where it lay in state for 4 days, with hundreds of thousands of people, including myself, paying their respects. Everyone queued throughout the night to do this, but the Queen's coffin was very heavy for the pallbearers and the bearer party to carry. Many people have stated that the bearer party who carried the coffin should never have to pay for a drink themselves, and instead of using a traditional 6 pallbearers, they needed 8, as the coffin of the Queen was allegedly so heavy. The Queen's coffin was made from English oak, which was lined with lead, which was a traditional choice for members of the royal family. It's claimed that the Queen's coffin was actually made 30 years ago, when the Duke of Edinburgh's coffin was also created at the same time. So it had been stored morosely for a long time, but the use of lead prevents air and moisture from building up, and the point of this was to ensure that the Queen's remains are protected in an airtight coffin, so they can be better preserved for the centuries to come. The Queen was not interred in the ground like the majority of burials, and she is actually laid to rest above ground in the vault, under the King George VI Memorial Chapel in St George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. She was interred inside of the floor, and her coffin is held in a vault alongside her husband's. A funeral director stated that, "My understanding is that the Queen and all members of the royal family have coffins made whilst alive, so there is no delay, the coffin is there. Most people are buried underground. If you have a coffin vault or a family chamber in a church, then that coffin remains above ground and open to the elements. A sealed coffin is very important." The use of lead lining in coffins can be traced back to the Victorian period, where the bodies of the public who were laid to rest above ground needed protecting in the airtight chamber. But with this, the coffins were very heavy and considerable to move. Winston Churchill also had a lead-lined coffin, so it wasn't just exclusive to the royal family. However, lead-lined coffins are considered to be used for someone with incredibly high social standing. It also depends on the funeral directors and if they can actually source them. The royal undertakers did specialise in lead-lined coffins, and it was said that oak and elm seemed to have been the chosen woods when it came to making the coffin, but in terms of royal coffins, they are often made from oak from the Sandringham estate. That's the distinction here, and oak in general is often chosen because of its distinctive grain pattern, but oak isn't exclusive to royal coffins. But with the use of lead, it's been reported that the coffin containing the Queen could have weighed up to 700 pounds. This is a colossal weight, and this is why more military bearers were needed to carry the coffin. There were different challenges with using the lead-lined box, as it was said that coffins are normally sealed by screwing the lid into the sides, but that does not form an airtight seal. The modern process would be to zinc-line the coffin, and zinc is more thinner than lead. But many undertakers have rarely seen a coffin like the Queen's, with it being a more traditional method for the royal family. It's believed that the preservation methods of using a lead-lined coffin is similar to Egyptian mummies, who managed to immaculately preserve bodies when they were buried. It was said that the embalmed corpse of King Edward I, which was inside a lead-lined marble sarcophagus, when opened 400 years after his death, was relatively intact and well preserved, even 4 centuries after his death. But the Queen's funeral and her procession was incredibly moving. To see the crown and the orb and sceptre on her coffin, as well as a standard, was a sombre moment in history. For over 70 years she reigned, and for many was the only constant that lots of people had throughout their whole lives. As we move into the reign of her son, King Charles III, There is a significant degree of uncertainty in Britain, which the nation has not seen for a very long time. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.